In the upcoming clip, Noam Chomsky gives his perspective on who rules the world, challenging the traditional understanding of power dynamics. While acknowledging the role of states, particularly powerful nations like the United States, Chomsky argues that focusing solely on governments paints an incomplete picture. He contends that concentrations of power within states, particularly powerful economic and corporate interests, significantly influence global affairs. These masters of mankind, as he termed them, shape policy decisions that benefit their interests, often at the expense of the general population, both domestically and internationally. Now off to this wonderful clips and following some more perspectives on this subject by Chomsky.
As I try to discuss in the book, there is no simple answer. We usually think of states when that question is raised. And with regard to states, there's no doubt that the United States, despite its decline for many, many years, is still overwhelmingly more powerful than any state or group of states. But that's only one factor. States have internal structures, an internal distribution of power. In the United States, power is overwhelmingly and increasingly in recent years in the hands of a very narrow sector of corporate wealth, private wealth, and power. And they have counterparts elsewhere who agree with them, who interact with them largely. And that's another dimension in who rules the world. And there's also the public. The public can have, sometimes does have, enormous power. We can go back to David Hume, first major modern work on political philosophy, Foundations of the Theory of Government, pointed out that force is on the side of the governed. Those who are governed have the force if they are willing to and eager to and recognize the possibility to exercise it. Sometimes they do. That's a major force in who rules the world. I mean, China plays a very important role in the world, undoubtedly. If you take a look at, say, per capita income, it's far behind the United States and other developed states. It has enormous internal problems, demographic, ecological, resources, and so on. It's undoubtedly going to play an important, in military terms, it's not even a fraction of the United States and Western powers. So it's, yes, and economically it's significant, but bear in mind that a good deal of Chinese production is actually foreign owned. Apple, world's major corporation, happens to produce in China largely, but that's U.S. production, which happens to use Chinese facilities, labor, and other facilities. So China is a growing, developing power in some domains. In fact, it's gone quite far, even in high technology industry. So, for example, in production of solar panels, China's in the lead, not just in mass production, but also in innovation and high-tech development. And all of this is significant, but is by no means a power on the scale of the United States. In fact, take a look at the confrontations between China and the United States now. There are serious confrontations. Are they in the Caribbean? Are they off the coast of California? No. They're in waters around China where China and others have territorial claims. That's a symbolic reflection of the nature of state power. How I describe Russia? Authoritarian, brutal, harsh, carrying out ugly actions in its own region. The United States, on the other hand, carries out such actions all over the world. In fact, again, look at there are serious confrontations between Russia and the United States. And once again, are they on the Mexican border, the Canadian border? No, they're on the Russian border. In fact, right at the point of the traditional invasion route through which Russia has been virtually destroyed several times in the past century, also earlier history. Again, that's no apologetics for what Putin may be doing, but it should lead us to have a rational perspective on the relationship between these forces in the world. As for the U.S. being the leading terror state, I should say that's hardly just my opinion. So, for example, I noted when I was introduced, the the person who introduced me said that I regard the United States as the gravest threat to world peace. That's not exactly, it's a little misrepresents the situation. There are international polls run by the leading U.S. polling agency, Gallup, its international affiliate, Gallup Win. And one of the questions they ask is, which country is the gravest threat to world peace? And the United States is first by a huge margin. Far behind, in second place, is Pakistan. That's undoubtedly inflated by the Indian vote, and others have slight mention. So that's global opinion. And I should mention that this was not even reported in the United States. Happened to be reported by BBC, but wasn't reported in the United States. As for being a terrorist state, President Obama's global assassination campaign, the drone assassination campaign, is an extreme terrorist war. I mean, if Iran, let's say, was carrying out a campaign to assassinate people around the world who it thought might be planning to harm Iran, we would regard it as terrorism. For example, if they were bombing the editorial offices of the New York Times and the Washington Post, which publish op-eds by prominent figures saying that we should bomb Iran right now, not wait. So obviously they want to harm Iran. Suppose Iran was assassinating them and anybody who happened to be standing around all over. Would we regard that as terrorism? I think we would.
Instead of individual leaders or nations, Chomsky emphasizes analyzing the underlying power structures that shape global decision-making. He argues that these structures, often influenced by concentrated economic and corporate interests, exert significant control over various aspects of international affairs, including trade, foreign policy, and resource management. Chomsky has been particularly critical of the role of the United States in the world order. He argues that the U.S., driven by its desire to maintain global dominance, has engaged in interventions and policies that often prioritize its own interests over international law, human rights, and the needs of the global population. He emphasizes the need for a critical examination of U.S. foreign policy and its global consequences. While acknowledging the current influence of the U.S. and other powerful nations, Chomsky recognizes the shifting power dynamics in the global landscape. He suggests the rise of other economic and political players, such as China, could lead to a more multipolar world order, potentially challenging the current US-centric dominance. Well, I hope you liked the video and subscribe to the channel. If you wish, you can join the channel as a member, which would be greatly appreciated. Now, take care and bye-bye.